All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Yeah.
All right, well, what's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a great morning. Welcome to Around the Bases. I'm Chris Gonzalez, joined by the stat guy, Dustin Reese. I need to fix my name there because my dad's not with me this morning. but we're down to the last four teams in the playoffs now after the Yankees get by the Guardians last night. I thought that was going to be a lot better game than what it was, but the Yankees took control quick. How you doing this morning, Dustin?
Doing well, Chris. Doing well.
I think the Guardians made a big mistake last night by sticking with Savali after you had the game got postponed. Even if you wasn't going to go with Bieber, I think they'd have been better off just doing the bullpen game.
Yeah, and that was the one thing that I think I mentioned. Oh God, what day was it? Friday? No, Monday. I don't know, Monday or Friday, whatever day it was. That with the rain out, it kind of gave, in my opinion, Cleveland the advantage because with that rain out, you had an opportunity to use Shane Bieber. And he wouldn't have been pitching on short rest. He would have been on normal rest. And yet you chose to stick with Aaron Savale. You chose to basically put him in a position where the Yankees jumped on him early and often, and that's really all he needed to basically have his fate sealed. And when you look at when Terry Francona went to the bullpen, why not bring Shane Bieber in at that point anyways? Because it's an elimination game, all hands are going to be on deck. So Bieber's going to say, yes, I can pitch. So why didn't you start him, or why didn't you even bring him in to try to limit the damage the Yankees had to give you an opportunity to win?
Yeah, I didn't understand it either. I heard people saying, oh, they're saving him for game one.
Got to get to game one first.
Yeah, you got to get there first. It don't make no sense trying to save anybody. See, Rio says, morning, fellas. Hey, good morning. Also says, really underrated baseball show. Respect. Thanks, Rio. We appreciate that. Frankie, it's going down for the ALCS. Let's go. Frankie's fired up. him and Jay gonna be going at it. Hey, Josh Nolan, who's your daddy?
You mean Josh Naylor?
Yeah, I didn't understand that, but I didn't understand why they didn't use Bieber. But I guess Francona had his reasons. Francona's a good manager, but to me that just didn't make no sense.
I think Francona outsmarted himself, mainly because I think he's trusted his pitching staff all year. And that's always been the strength of the Cleveland team, and that's what put him in the position that they were in, was a very good starting rotation. So I think he was putting a lot of trust in Savale to at least give him 3 or 4 innings, keep things close, and then decide what you were going to do after that. And to the Guardians' credit, they did keep things close that entire game. The difference was that 3 runs off of Savale right away, which ultimately was the difference. Otherwise, it was a 2-1 game after that.
Yeah. Yep. And then you had the Phillies jump right out on San Diego. Phillies are hot right now. And Harper, Castellanos been hitting the ball. Then Schwarber, like we were talking about right before the show, just killed a ball. I think they said it went 488 feet. Wheeler pitched a hell of a game last night, too.
Wheeler and Darvish both did.
Yeah. Darvish pitched good, too, and he gave up 2. But what Wheeler ended up giving up? Just a couple hits?
I think Wheeler gave up. I was going to look that up right now. I think he gave up 2 hits only. Let's see here. Yeah, Wheeler gave up 1 hit in 7 innings with 1 walk and 8 strikeouts.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew that at one time he only gave up 1.
And he only threw 83 pitches, so I'm surprised that Zach Thompson didn't let him out there a little bit, or not Zach Thompson, Rob Thomas didn't leave him out there another inning just because he was only at 83 pitches. It's not like he was at 100 pitches. He could have got through 1 inning and possibly even 2 innings, depending on how many pitches he would have thrown in that other inning.
Yeah. What a performance from Wheeler. Rio asks, is this a must-win for the Padres today?
I'm not going to say it's a must win yet. The only reason is you look at the pitching matchup for today, the Phillies are going with Aaron Nola and the Padres are going with Blake Snell. Let's just say the Phillies go up 2-0. Game 3, you're going to have Joe Musgrove against Ranger Suarez. Well, advantage goes to the Padres with Joe Musgrove.
Yeah.
And then Game 4 is going to be Mike Clevenger against Kyle Gibson, because the Phillies haven't even really had to use the number 4 starter yet.
Yep.
So the Padres really have, I think, a better advantage as the series goes on, just because they have their rotation the way they want it. And worst comes to worst, let's just say Blake Snell struggles or Clevenger struggles. They still have Sean Manaea, who was their number 5 starter during the regular season. Granted, he had his struggles. He's still a very good starting pitcher that they can use for multiple innings out of the bullpen if needed, versus the Phillies. We know who their top 3 starters are because they've relied on them all the playoffs. But who's their number 4 at this point? Kyle Gibson? I don't even know who the number 4 really is.
Yeah. No, and then in Game 5, they'll come back with Wheeler again.
And then Nola in Game 6, and then Suarez in Game 7.
They don't. Well, Phillies don't want it to go to 7, because if it goes to 7, Padres have the advantage with.
Yeah.
Because they'll be able to put Snell on the mound against
Snell or Clevenger or Musgrove, depending on
Yeah.
pitch count and days rest and things like that.
against Suarez, and you really don't want. I'm nothing against Suarez, but you don't want him on the mound for Game 7.
No,
if it goes that far. He hasn't pitched terrible in the playoffs, but still, he's one of them guys that's inconsistent.
he is inconsistent, but he's been very impressive though for most of the season. I've been very impressed with how he's looked this season, but the bigger the games is kind of where I'm curious to see, and I'm even surprised with how Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola have pitched also, just because they have never been in the playoffs before. Nola wasn't with the Phillies the last time the Phillies got in, and Wheeler was with the Mets his entire career, and the last time the Mets made the playoffs, Wheeler was hurt. So he didn't even have an opportunity to pitch in the playoffs this year. So this is really his first go-around in the playoffs also. So I've been very impressed with how he's looked too.
Yeah. And if we take a look at the ALCS, it's going to be Yankees and Astros. Yankees are going to start Talion today against Verlander. We know Verlander did struggle in the last series, one of his starts. So, but how much of an advantage do you think it gives Houston that the Yankees are coming in on no risk because they had to play last night and then fly to Houston for today's game?
Honestly, I think the Yankees have the advantage today. And the only reason why I say that is I know I touched this on the afternoon show last week or earlier this week. Verlander has never been a very good pitcher on extended rest. And you saw how much he struggled in Game 1 on that extended rest. With the Yankees series not only going 5 games as opposed to the 3 games that Houston series went, but then you have the rainout added in there so they extended it even longer. Verlander's on extra rest again for the second time in the playoffs. This time it's only, I think, 6 days as opposed to 8 or 9 days like his last start. But it's still extra days rest, which he's not been comfortable with. So I think the Yankees have the advantage today because of that. But the rest of the series, you have to give Houston the advantage just because they've played like a number 1 seed. I'm not saying the Yankees aren't going to give them a game. I think it's going to go at least 6 games. I don't see it going 4. I don't see it going 5. I think it goes at least 6. But you have to give Houston a slight advantage right now. But I do think the Yankees have the advantage in Game 1 today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Yankees have the advantage today because, for one, we've seen teams this postseason struggle on having the rest. I mean, look at the teams that had the buys during the wild card round. A lot of them struggled coming in, and then
you could even say Houston struggled in that first game of the playoffs. Granted, they won 8-7 because Seattle had a catastrophic meltdown, but Seattle was winning that game at 1.6-2. And Houston came out in Game 1 very, very flat. The only difference between them, the Braves, and the Dodgers was they were able to recover a lot quicker. Same thing with the Yankees. The Yankees were kind of sluggish most of that first series for them, and they managed to win the series. But, yeah, all the teams that had that first round bye basically, and that extended rest came out very flat in the playoffs thus far.
Yeah, and I think that, but I do agree with you. As the series goes on, I think Houston has the advantage because of their bullpen.
Yeah.
Their bullpen to me is a little bit better than the Yankees bullpen. But they're gonna have to keep the Yankees big bats in check. Not let Judge get hot, who's been struggling in the playoffs. I know he hit the ball a little bit better last night. Had a home run, but I think he's what, like 3 for 18 or 4 for 19, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't been good in the playoffs at all. But Rio said, "Who do you guys have in this series?" I think the Astros are going to win the series.
Yeah, I have
Because
Houston
of their
in I have
bullpen.
Houston in 6.
Um, who do you have winning the Phillies and the Padres series? You think the Phillies are going to be able to pull this off?
I still have the Padres winning in 7, just because the whole beating the Dodgers, they kind of got that mental hurdle out of the way, which is the one team that's really had their number the last 3 years during the regular season. So now that they beat the Dodgers and got that out of the way, I think they're just going to be playing with a ton of confidence. And yes, they lost last night, but they lost 2-0. So it's not like Darvish pitched bad. It's just that Wheeler pitched better. And you're going to have that where your pitcher pitches a phenomenal game that 9 out of 10 times he would typically win. It's just this happened to be that one game where he went against somebody that pitched better. I'm not going to be surprised if the Phillies win, but I don't expect this series to go any less than 7 games. I think it's just going to be one of those classic NLCS type of series because nobody expected either of these teams to be in this position, let alone both of them. And the fact that both of them are here right now, I think it's just going to be a very enjoyable series because it's the first time in National League playoff history that 2 teams with less than 90 wins are meeting in the NLCS.
Yeah. And I mean, and the Padres knocked out 2 teams that had won over 100 games to get here.
Mm-hmm.
They said that Schwarber's home run was the hardest hit home run in postseason.
Yeah, the hardest hit home run and the second farthest. The only one that went farther was Wilson Contreras in 2017 when he took one off of Alex Wood 491 feet.
The first time San Diego been shut out since September 28th. So, I mean, that just showed you how good Wheeler was last night.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about the Phillies and the Padres, like you said, nobody expected them to be here. So I think they're both going into this series kind of loose. You know what I mean? Not all tensed up. So I think that could help make the series even better.
I should kind of clarify what I meant by that. When you look at how the regular season ended and where these 2 teams were in the standings, nobody expected either one of these teams to be here.
Yeah.
But when you look at the roster that San Diego has on paper and the trades that they made, it's really not surprising that they're here. They have Juan Soto. They have Joe Musgrove, who pitched like a Cy Young this year. They have Darvish. They have Snell. They didn't even have Fernando Tatis this year.
Yeah.
And they still put themselves in a position to be where they are. So once Tatis comes back, he's missing the first 54 games next year. But once he comes back, the team's going to be that much better. But when you look at the Padres roster on paper, it's arguably a top 3 roster. So if you're going based off of that, I don't think anyone's surprised to see them in the position they're in because a lot of people expected them to kind of contend for this spot. But if you just go based off of how the season finished and how they were sitting in the standings, nobody expected both of these teams to eliminate the Braves and the Dodgers.
No, and Hader's starting to look like Hader again.
Which I'm not surprised at that either. I'm just surprised it kind of took him as long to kind of rediscover himself. But you have to wonder if it was more of the Brewers overusing him when they had him to where you kind of have those, what they call like the dead arm period, where you're out there, you're throwing, but you just have either nothing in your arm or you just can't locate because you've been overworked. And I think that was kind of the problem with Josh Hader when he got to San Diego was the Brewers overworked him to the point where he had nothing left. And he kind of went through his struggles and kind of took his bumps, but now it seems like he's back to his old self.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's pitched good in the playoffs so far. We'll see if he can keep it up today. Got 2 games today, which I love that we get 2 games today. I think, and like I said, I think it helps the Yankees not having the rest. I know some people say it's not fair. They should have moved it back, and gave them a day rest. But that's part of playoff baseball. With weather gets involved, and schedule changes, and sometimes you got to play back to back.
And it's not the first. Wasn't this the second game of the series that got rained out? Because didn't Cleveland have rain out too? So it's not like this was a planned thing. The Yankees would have had extra days off. It's just the fact that you had the two rainouts that basically took their typical travel days out the window.
Yeah, what was it? Game 2 got
Game 2 got rained out, and then obviously Game 5 got rained out. But Game 2 ended up turning out to be basically the travel day, because then your travel day was Game 2, and then you played Game 3 right away back to back. And same thing with the rain out in Game 5. Game 5 was supposed to be played, and yesterday was supposed to be the travel day. Well, with that Game 5 rain out happening, then your travel day became Game 5, and now you don't have that travel day.
Let me ask you this: Do you like the pitching rule where when you bring in a pitcher, he has to pitch to at least 3 batters?
I do, just because I hated Madden, and Joe Madden was a classic manager to this, and I'm one of those people that loved what Joe Madden did for the Cubs, obviously, just because he got him that World Series title and everything. But at the same time, I don't think he's a very good manager. I think he just came to a team at the perfect time that had a lot of talent that was able to work with him. And they were able to cover up a lot of his managerial flaws and mistakes that really came out when he went to the Angels this year. And the Angels just did not have a good enough roster to cover up a lot of his flaws. But a big thing that he always did was he would bring in a left-handed pitcher to face a left-handed batter. Next batter would be a righty. He would take that pitcher out, face a righty with a righty, and then take that pitcher out to face another lefty with a lefty. I hated it. It made the game take another 10, 15 minutes. It was just stupid because you bring in a lefty, all that manager has to do is counter with a right-handed pitch hitter, and then basically your move means absolutely nothing. But you're a major league pitcher that obviously had to work to get to the major leagues. If you can't pitch to 3 batters, no matter if they're a righty or a lefty, you have no business being in the major leagues. Like, you don't have a starting pitcher say, I don't want to face a left-hander today, so take me out before that left-handed batter gets here. No, they have to face the entire 9 hitters in the lineup, so why shouldn't a reliever be required to at least face 3 hitters? There's no reason at all that a right-handed pitcher can't face a lefty and vice versa.
And a lot of times when you do that, it don't work anyway. I mean, you know what I mean? You can switch a lefty against a lefty. That lefty still gonna come out and get a hit. So I mean, it don't always work. I agree with you. I like it. I know a lot. I was talking to a guy yesterday. He hates it. Oh, they should be able to switch whenever they want. What if a pitcher comes in and he's having control problems? Well, hey, get through 3 batters. I mean, it was the same for both teams. So to me, it's not a big deal. How do you feel about the shift? Like last night, I saw that they were in the shift in that Phillies game and almost cost them. They messed up a double play. Would have been a double play ball they had the game, but the guy made a bad throw. And I know the shift is going to change now, where you have to have at least 2 guys on each side of second base in the infield, so they ain't going to be able to shift as much. Do you like that they're changing that rule?
Oh, see, I'm kind of on the fence about it because I understand why the shift was put in place, and I understand why they want to get rid of it. They want to get rid of it because they want to make it more of an offensive game, which obviously fans want to see offense when they go to a baseball game, and there's a lot of hitters this year that had 245, 250 averages that would probably be hitting 275, 280 if you got rid of the switch, Shift, yes, that's the word I'm looking for, because there's times where they would hit it in the right center, and you had a shortstop standing out in right center field where normally you wouldn't have the shortstop. Yeah. So I know hitters are going to be happy with it, but the part that I don't like about it is the shift has really showed how flawed Major League Baseball hitters are. If you see a team putting basically all 4 infielders basically right at second base over and 3 of them on the first base side of second base, why are you not bunting? Why are you not even just doing a check swing to hit a dribbler down the third baseline? You could get a double on a dribbler down the third baseline because there is nobody standing over there. but yet you still try to pull the ball and you pull it into the shift every single time. So this is kind of giving hitters a free pass not to adjust and a free pass to get away from the basic fundamentals of baseball, because now they're like, well, we don't care that you can't hit it the opposite way, so we'll just make it easier for you and get rid of the shift, and then you can just keep pulling it every time.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm like you. I'm on the fence because as a fan, it's weird because as a fan, like you said, you want to see offense, but I also want to see these guys hit the opposite way as well. Play good fundamental baseball. And the way they changed it now, you can move over, but you got to keep two guys on each side of the base. So you really can't shift much. So we'll see how it affects the game, and if
yeah, you have to keep two guys on each side of the base, and you have to keep them. I think they said within 3 feet of the infield.
Okay.
So even if I would be okay with them keeping the shift if they wanted to say that every player has to be within 3 feet of the infield.
Yeah.
Because then it eliminates that person that's like 25, 30 feet out, basically as a rover type of player.
Yeah.
Like if they were to say, like, we're going to keep the shift, so if you want to put 3 guys on the first base side of second base, that's fine. But all 3 have to be within this many feet of the infield, then I would be okay with it, because then you could still have like those bloop singles over the head of everybody, or like a hard line drive that's going to get through, as opposed to when you have that guy 35, 40 feet out in the grass, bloop singles aren't going to fall, line drives aren't going to fall because that person's going to be right there to get to him.
Yeah. So I would be fine with that. Say everybody has to be within like 3 to 5 feet of the infield, and you can play wherever you want. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. The hitters need to learn how to go the opposite way. I mean, you see some hitters that can, but you see a lot of hitters, because like one thing they've been showing in the playoffs, they'll show like where guys usually hit the ball, and there's guys that like right or left-handers that like 2% of the time hit the ball opposite field. It's like, why? You're a Major League Baseball hitter. You should be able to put that ball basically where you want to. I understand the ball's coming 100 miles an hour, but still, you should be able to be better at. You shouldn't be a dead pull hitter all the time.
No, and it's not even like, you don't even have to be good at hitting the ball the opposite way. You literally have to take a check swing and just make contact. Because even if you hit the ball 35 feet down the line, there's still nobody over there to get you. Like, you don't even have to hit it hard. Oh. Just put it in play and let it roll, and you would beat it out every single time.
Yeah, you can basically just stick the bat out there, let the ball hit it, go that direction. You're going to get there, because the only person that's going to have a chance to get to is going to be the pitcher.
Or the third baseman. By the time the third baseman gets there, you're standing at first anyways.
The third baseman half the time standing out by second base when they're in that shift. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So in the Yankees game, we both think the Astros have the advantage pitching wise. Who do you think has the advantage offensive wise? Because both these lineups have some pretty good hitters in them.
Offensively, I don't think either team really has the advantage, just because both teams can score a boatload of runs. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the pitching, and with Houston having the advantage on that side, you have to give their offense a slight advantage too, because if their pitching can slow the Yankees' offense down, then their offense doesn't have to be as productive as it normally does, because the pitching will be able to hold their own on that end.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because this is something I've always kind of was wondering. Why doesn't baseball maybe start a couple weeks earlier? And that way the playoffs start a little bit earlier. Then you don't have to worry about the weather, like getting cold. Because like during the regular season, most of the games are played in like perfect conditions. You don't have a whole lot of games. And then we get in the playoffs or the World Series where the games are the most important. And then sometimes we're playing in cities where it's 30 degrees outside. And that's the weather conditions.
That's the reason why they don't start it earlier. Because when it comes to the World Series, you don't know who's going to make it until you get there. So you could have 2 teams from California or a team from Florida and Texas where weather's not going to be a factor. But then you could also have teams like when Chicago and Cleveland were in the World Series where weather's going to be a factor, but yet November 3rd, Game 7 of the World Series that year was 79 degrees and sunny out all day, so you really can't control the weather at that point.
Yeah.
Versus middle of March in the Midwest, you know it's going to be cold.
Oh, yeah.
Middle of March on the East Coast, you know it's going to be cold. Middle of March on the West Coast, you know it's going to be cold. So starting the season 2 weeks early, not only do you know it's going to be cold, but a large portion of the country still has snow on the ground. Versus right now, there's a chance that it's going to be cold because the Philadelphia Phillies or the New York Yankees could make the World Series. But there's also a chance where you're not going to have to worry about weather because if Houston and San Diego make it, one team has a retractable roof where they could just close it all the time, and the other team plays in San Diego, which probably has the most perfect weather in the country anyways. So that's why starting the season when they do now, yes, there's a chance that the World Series is going to have terrible weather, but there's also that chance that the weather's going to be gorgeous versus starting a season in mid-March, you already know that 75 to 80% of the league is going to have terrible weather.
Yeah, that's true. Well, what if they took a couple weeks off this season?
Like take games off?
Well, I guess you'd have to take a couple.
Yeah, and that's
They don't want to do that.
Yeah, they won't do that.
Which, I mean, hell, actually, if you wanted to take like just a couple weeks of games off, it wouldn't be that big a deal. They play 162, but baseball's not going to do that because of money.
Well, now with the new schedule that comes into play next year, they won't be able to. Just because now, instead of playing your division 19 times, you're playing your own division 14 times.
Yeah.
You're playing the rest of your league 60 times. And then the remaining 42 games of the season are going to be played against all the American League teams or all the National League teams. So now instead of facing 18 teams a year counting interleague play, you're going to be facing all 29 teams.
Yeah. I like that they're changing the schedule. I think that's going to be make it a little even more interesting that everybody gets to play everybody.
It's good because it gives fans a chance to see players like Mike Trout, Shohei, Vlad Guerrero, and all these other players, Aaron Judge, every year, as opposed to seeing them every 3 years, kind of with how the current interleague play schedule goes. But doing a schedule like this too, you're really going to see who the best teams in baseball are. Yes, you're still going to have 14 games against your own division, so if you play in a very weak division, you're still going to be able to rattle off a lot of wins to try to bank a lot of wins. But then you're playing everybody else, just like everybody else is playing everybody else. So let's just say, for example, 56 games in your division. So let's just say the Dodgers go 40-16 in the NL West next year because the NL West is terrible. But then the rest of the season, they're playing 500 baseball because they're playing the rest of the league. They may not end up with the best record because you could have a team like the Yankees or Houston that plays roughly 500 in their own division, maybe a little bit above 500 because you have a better division. But then when they start getting into the rest of the teams, they're winning 70% of their games. And that's where you can kind of really see who the better teams are just because, yeah, their division record might not be great, but if they have a very difficult division, you're not going to have the best record in your division. It's what you do outside of your division that's ultimately going to decide, I think, how the playoffs are seeded next year.
With this new schedule, do you think we'll see less teams winning over 100 games?
I don't think we'll see less teams winning under 100 games. I think we'll see less teams losing 100 games. Because I think you'll see a lot more parity just because look at the Dodgers, for example. They won 111 games. The Rockies, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres have 5 less games against the Dodgers next year. That gives each of those teams a chance to win 5 additional games. Yeah. Let's just say San Diego goes 5-0. They're a 94-win team as opposed to an 89-win team. You give the Giants 5 additional wins, they're sitting at 83 wins now and a possible wild card team. And then the Rockies would have, I think, 67 wins if you give them 5 more, 68, which puts them under 100 losses. And the Diamondbacks would be at like 73, 74. I think if you're a good team, you're going to win 100 games no matter who you're playing on your schedule and no matter how many times you're playing them. But if you're a bad team that has to face a team like the Dodgers or a team like Houston 19 times, You take 5 of those games away, that gives you 5 additional chances to win 5 additional games. I think you might still have like teams that lose 100 games just because they might be kind of in a position like the Reds are where they literally are selling everybody off to just kind of bank for the future. But I think you'll have less teams losing 100 games just because the competition factor is going to be better.
No, with them with them changing the schedule in Major League, is that going to change the schedule any in the minor leagues?
The minor league schedule changed in 2021 after the COVID year, and it really hasn't changed back, and I don't think it ever will change back just because now they're going with 6-game series where they're playing Tuesday through Sunday every week, and they're using Monday as the universal travel day, give or take, because if they have to make up games at the end of the year, then obviously Mondays will be used as the makeup games. And it used to be the International League and the Pacific Coast League in AAA where you would have 15 teams in the International League, 15 teams in the Pacific Coast League. You would play all 14 teams, like 6 times, and then you'd face everybody in the International League, 1 series each or whatever. Now I think it's literally they play just everybody in their division, like everybody like in their league. So they play, 15 teams, 10 times each roughly, and I think that's it. And they do that just to kind of eliminate travel. They do that just because of the whole 6-game series now, where you're sitting at one city for 6 days. You really can't afford to go from California for a 6-game series and then fly all the way back to New York for another 6-game series. It's got to be more regional centralized, so I don't see that changing. I think that stays the way it does just because the minor league players, the minor league coaches said it works very well. Knowing that you know exactly where you're going to be for a week, you can plan accordingly, and then Monday's your travel day. Technically, whenever your game is done on Sunday is your travel day, and then Monday's your off day to get ready for the next series.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't know if they were ever going to go back to the way to how it was before.
I'm not a fan of the 6-game series just because whatever starting pitcher you use in game 1 is coming back to start in game 6.
Yeah.
So there's really nothing that pitcher can throw at you that you haven't seen already in that series. So if he dominates you in game 1, chances are he's not going to dominate you in game 6 of that series because you've already seen what he brings to the table. If you get hit hard and struggle in game 1, chances are you're going to get hit hard and struggle in game 6 of the series just because what else are you going to throw that the hitter's not going to know what's coming? I think that ultimately is why I don't like it, just because I don't like seeing this. It's not, to me, it's the playoffs should be the only time you see a pitcher more than once in the series, not during the regular season. And I just don't like the fact now that a lot of the minor league rivalries that I grew up on are no longer in play just because teams have switched leagues. They've gone from the Pacific Coast League to the International League or vice versa. And now, because they made that move, they don't get to see the teams they used to play in the Pacific Coast League. They might see them like once every 2 or 3 years as opposed to seeing them 6 times a year.
Now, did they do the same schedule for the 2A and single A?
Yep. Yeah, so all the way through the minor leagues have the same kind of scheduled process now, where it's a 6-game series. Monday's the universal off day. I don't like that. I think the more teams you play, the better. Yeah. So even if that means 3 or 4 game series as opposed to 6, I think outside of football, just because football cannot play a 30-game season. They just can't because your body would be dead by the time
you wouldn't have no players left.
But with NHL and the NBA, they play everybody at least twice. They play everybody on the opposite conference twice, and then everybody in their own conference 3 or 4 times. I think that's what baseball should do, which they're finally doing it. And I think that's what the minor league should do too. I think you should face every team at least once. Whether it's at your place or at their place, you should still face every team once just because it gives fans a chance to see the top prospects. It gives fans a chance to see players that they may never get to see again, because if you're a guy like Bryce Harper, you're not going to be in the minor leagues for 3 years. You might be there for a year, maybe a year and a half. And if a fan doesn't have a chance to see that guy play in the minors, it's kind of a missed opportunity, because if a guy like Bryce Harper is coming to Fort Wayne, you know damn well Fort Wayne's going to be sold out for that 3-game series that he's there. all of a sudden, you're like, well, you're not going to play Fort Wayne this year. You're not going to play Fort Wayne next year. It's a missed opportunity to get revenue for some of these teams.
Yeah, because there's times that me and Dad would go to any. There was a player on the other team that we wanted to get to see.
Yeah. And that's why I think they should at least face every team once, because then if you have one of these highly regarded prospects, there's a chance that they come to your place, and then you're going to be sold out for basically the next 3-4 games, which is more money into your pocket.
And you have some people that just can't afford to go to like a major league game, so that might be their only chance. In a minor league, might be their only chance to ever get to see that player live.
Yep.
Because you can get minor league games a hell of a lot cheaper than what you're going to a major league game for. So I mean, that might be the only way some people get to see them players.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people that just go to minor league games because it's more affordable, closer to home. You know what I mean? Because like here in Indiana, we don't have a major league baseball team, so I know a lot of people they go watch the Indians or go watch the Fort Wayne Tin Caps because they can't afford to travel to go somewhere else or pay for the more money for tickets.
Yeah, and like for me, I have a minor league team that's like 10 minutes down the road. Granted, they're the Brewers franchise, so it is what it is. But
ours is the Pirates.
South Bend Cubs go to Wisconsin Timber Rattlers 12 times a year. They have 2 6-game series. So I'm going there for all 12 games that South Bend is there. And then you have other teams that come there, like the Cardinals farm system comes there, the Reds farm system goes there. So like I have a chance to see the entire NL Central's farm system coming to Wisconsin, even though I'm not a Timber Rattler fan because of the Brewer affiliate. It still gives me a chance to see a lot of these lower level prospects that are going to be in the not all of them are going to make the major leagues, but it still gives me a chance to see these lower level prospects that are going to be in the Central Division for years to come.
Indianapolis is the Pirates. That's the closest to me. And then Fort Wayne, I think, if I remember right, is the Padres.
I think Fort Wayne's the Padres, yeah.
Which we go there too. It's not much further than Indianapolis. But then, like you said, South Bend, we could go there, but that's about a 3-hour drive for us to get up to South Bend.
Yeah, Fort Wayne Tin Caps are the Padres affiliate.
I was pretty sure that was it. I know Indians are the Pirates, so like we got to see a lot of the players that are on the Pirates now in the minor leagues.
Yep.
Me and Dad, we go to a lot of the minor league games there in Indy. Yeah. Have anything else that we missed that you want to talk about today, baseball wise?
The only thing I really want to talk about is kind of the managerial search right now, where I believe the White Sox and the White Sox, Royals, and Marlins, I believe, are the 3 jobs that are open at this point.
There's a lot less manager turnover in baseball than there each season.
I think there's gonna be more to come. I think there'll be more to come in the next few weeks. But as of right now, there's only 3 openings. In your opinion of those 3 openings, what job do you see as the best out of those 3? And I guess who do you think gets any of these jobs?
It was a White Sox, Royals, and
Marlins.
I think talent-wise, probably the White Sox.
Solid.
I'm trying to think who might get that job, because I mean, look at the expectations the White Sox had this season. Everybody expected them to be a playoff contender.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard names like Joe Madden. You've heard names like Ozzie Guillen coming back to the White Sox, which would be very intriguing because he got him to a World Series before. So, I mean, it's not like he hasn't worked with that kind of talent before. But I think the leading candidate right now is that Esposito, the bench coach for Houston.
Okay.
I think he's the leading candidate right now for the White Sox job. I've heard Barry Larkin's name thrown out there for the Marlins.
I wish Barry Larkin would be the Reds.
Yeah, I've heard Barry Larkin's name thrown out there for the Marlins just because he's got that international experience with leading the Brazil World Baseball Classic team. So he's had 9 or 10 years of managerial experience under his belt already. Granted, it's been at the international level. But I haven't heard anybody's name thrown out there for the Royals yet. I don't even know who they plan to interview. I don't know if they've even started the interview process, but I haven't heard anybody's name thrown out there for that position yet.
If I'm a White Sox fan, I'd rather have Guillen than Madden.
Yeah.
Man, I wish the Reds would get rid of Bell and bring in Larkin. I hope Larkin does get a job. I'm a
I
big
think
fan.
David Bell's going to be in his last year next year if things don't change.
Yeah, they've already said they're keeping him for the next
Because
season.
you look at 2020, yes, it was a COVID shortened season, but he got him into the playoffs in 2020. So he bought himself a little bit of time because of that. 2021, the Reds were competitive. They weren't a playoff team, but at least he had them competitive start to finish. And then you look at what the front office did to the Reds this year and basically got rid of anybody that was worth any talent. And the Reds started 3-18, 3-19. But the rest of the season, up until the final 3-4 weeks,
What about 500?
they were a 500 baseball team. So it's not like David Bell was doing a bad job with what he had. Now I don't expect the Reds to be big time players in free agency next year. I think they'll sign maybe some of those mid tier free agents to kind of fill out their roster. But you'll start to see a lot more of their highly regarded prospects coming up next year. And I think that's kind of where David Bell's going to be on the hot seat. Obviously, I don't think anyone's expecting the Reds to make the playoffs next year. And they might have a similar record to what they had this year where they're going to lose maybe 100 games. I think ultimately what's going to decide David Bell's fate is, are they consistent and are they competitive? You can't start the season 3-18, then play 500 baseball for 3 months and then finish the season like 10-30. Like, you need to at least be consistent. Even if you're winning, even if you're going 3 out of 3-7 every 10 games, if you go 4-6 every 10 games, that puts you at 66-96. Still, 30 games under 500 is not good, but if you're going 4-6 basically on average every 10 games, you're at least being consistent and competitive. Where 1 or 2 plays here and there, that 4-6 stretch turns into a 6-4 stretch. I think that's what'll kind of maybe keep him around a little bit longer, as if he's more consistent. But otherwise, I think last year's is next year, just because I think the Reds are going to just grow impatient with him, even if they are in a rebuild.
Yeah, they've already said that he's going to be there next year, but they fired like 5 or 6 of the assistant coaches.
Yeah.
You think, real quick, do you think Dave Roberts will still be at the Dodgers?
He'll still be with the Dodgers, but his seat's going to start getting a little bit hotter. Yes, I understand the Dodgers did win the World Series 2 years ago, but it was during a COVID-shortened season, and it was during a neutral site playoffs. The Dodgers have proven they are a regular season team. They're going to go out there, they're going to win 100-plus games because they play in arguably the crappiest division in baseball, where the Rockies and Diamondbacks are going to lose 90 to 95 games every year. San Francisco Giants just went through a full-blown rebuild where they won 103 games last year. Now this year they only won like 77. And then up until the last couple of years, San Diego was god-awful. So the Dodgers were always going to win 100 games. They're always going to be a top 2 seed in the playoffs because of that. But their biggest issue, and I've said this for years now, they wrap their division up so early that they're allowed to kind of coast their way through September, give some of their regular players rest, give some of their starters maybe a couple days off so they can skip a start here and there. And they tend to kind of go into the playoffs not in a bad position, but they kind of coast their way into the playoffs. And everybody says when it comes to a playoff team, you want to be playing your best baseball in September going into the playoffs.
Kind of like the Phillies are doing right now.
Exactly, and what the Braves were doing and what Houston has been doing, just because when you have a team like Seattle chasing you down, or a team like Atlanta and the Mets where Braves were chasing you down, you have to start your starters every single day. You have to keep your pitching rotation on like a normal schedule, because you need to make sure you're putting your best 9 guys out there just to get into the playoffs. And I think that's what the Dodgers' biggest issue is. Outside of last year when the Giants won 103 games, The Dodgers haven't had much divisional competition. And that's kind of what I'm waiting for next year now that San Diego has made the moves they've made. They've set themselves up nicely for the future. I'm not going to be surprised at all to see San Diego win 95 to 100 games next year. And I'm not going to be surprised at all to see the Dodgers do the same exact thing. And if that's the case, I think the Dodgers could be the World Series favorites next year just because they're not going to be clinching a division so
They
early.
have to compete
They're
for the
going to
whole
be
season.
they're going to have to fight San Diego for the whole season. It might be that final week of the season where they clinch, which means their starters are going to have to play that month of September. Their rotation is going to have to play that month of September where maybe that helps them play their best baseball of the year when it matters.
And I think people are forgetting that San Diego's playing this year without one of their best players.
Yeah.
Arguably maybe their best player, but
Yeah.
so you add him back on that team next year, which will he be with them at the beginning of the season next year, or
he misses the first, I think, 44 games he misses.
So he misses some of the beginning.
He'll miss the first month and a half ish. I'd say he'll probably miss the first 2 months because he'll still have to get up to baseball speed. So I think the way the suspension works on an 80-game suspension, it's 80 major league games you're suspended for. But once you get to, I think, game 65, you can play 15 games in the minors. Okay. So once he gets to that 65-game mark, that's basically the end of April at that point. He'll go to AAA. He'll spend the next 2-3 weeks in AAA basically as another form of spring training because your suspension doesn't count in the spring training. So Tatis obviously is going to play the entire spring training just because that doesn't count towards his suspension. But then once spring training's over, the next 3 weeks he can't do anything. But then after that, you get to that 65-game window, then expect him to go back to the minors for 3 additional weeks, kind of as that second form of spring training, trying to get him up to baseball speed. So I don't expect him to really show up until late May, maybe early June, but then they're still going to have him for 4 months.
Yeah. Yep. Which, I wonder if they're going. Wait a minute. Well, no, he'd be playing AAA probably, wouldn't he?
Who?
Tatis, when he played in the minor league,
he'll be in AAA. They'll just send him right to AAA.
I said, man, I might be able to get a chance to go watch him in Fort Wayne.
No, they'll send him to AAA.
They'll send him to AAA. I was like, yeah, I'll get to chance to go watch Fort Wayne to watch him, but then I was like, no, he'll be in AAA. He ain't gonna be down. He ain't gonna be in the day.
Yeah, they'll probably send him to AAA, and they'll probably be like, you play 5 innings a day, and then you're just going to be out kind of just similar to spring training where they get like 2 at-bats, maybe 3 at-bats, and they play 5 innings, and then they just come out the rest of the game.
If he was going to be in Fort Wayne playing, you bet your ass I'd be there. Because, I mean, that'd be one of my only – well, now he'll play – he might play in Cincinnati, because of the new schedule. I might get a chance to actually see him play sometime with the – since we're playing all the teams now, but beforehand, we never played the Padres hardly.
Yeah.
All right, man. Anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. Just looking forward to another exciting day of baseball. Another hopefully exciting week of baseball where you're going to have upsets, where you're going to have big moments, maybe by players we don't expect, because that's always how the playoffs work. You always have those moments of greatness by somebody you don't expect. Yep. We don't know who that player is going to be yet. We don't know who that pitcher is going to be yet, but you know it's going to come at some point.
And we've had a lot of – that's one thing about these playoffs. Almost all the games have been close competitive games. We haven't had a lot of big blowouts. And I mean, even some of the games that looked like they're going to be a blowout.
I mean,
competitive.
Realistically, and as hard as this is to believe, the only series where a lot of the games were blowouts was that Braves-Philly series. I mean, game 1 it was 7-6, but the Phillies were winning that game 7-1, and then game 2 was 10-3, and game 3 was 8-3.
Yeah.
Or game 4 was 8-3. But then you look at the Guardians series with the Yankees. Every one of those games was 1 or 2 runs. The Houston and Seattle series, that entire series was 2 runs or less. The Padres and Dodgers, that series was basically 2 runs or less. I think there was one blowout in there, but outside of that, it was 2 runs or less. So, I mean, ironically, the series that was the blowout was the Philly series.
Yep. Yeah, we've had a lot of good games. I'm ready for today. I think it starts at, is it 4?
I think it's 4 and 8,
Yeah.
4 and 7:30, because obviously the Padres play last because they're hanging out in, yes, gorgeous San Diego where the weather's perfect.
Must be.
Yeah,
nice.
the first game's at 3:35, and okay, I guess the Padres play first for whatever reason. That makes no sense to me. But the Padres play first at 3:35, and Houston plays at 6:37.
That's kind of crazy. They're playing at like noon and
Yep. Probably, if I could guess, it's probably because the Yankees
had to travel.
played. Yeah, they probably given the Yankees that extra time off because of travel.
They played the late game last night and had to travel.
That's how, if I could guess, that's why they did that. But who knows?
I bet you people in San Diego are happy. Game being at 12:30.
They probably won't even have school today. They'll probably be like, "Yep, no school today. Go home, enjoy the game." I know that's what they were doing in Chicago when the Cubs were in the World Series. School was being canceled pretty much every day at 12 o'clock. I mean, like, go home, get ready for the game. Go home, get ready for the game.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. They do that. All right. I want to thank everybody for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Gonzo Sports Room, also at the All Sports All Plays Network. Also, coming up, getting ready to start now, will be the ASAP in the morning, ASAP's morning show. Go check them guys out. Craig and Ray do a great job with that. You can find me again here at 1 p.m. Eastern with the ASAP Afternoon Blitz. We'll talk baseball, football, NBA. Regular season opened up last night. Get a full slate of NBA games today to go along with the baseball games. So a bit busy time in the sports world. You got hockey that just started as well, so got all kinds of stuff going on.
I think it's a full slate of NBA tonight too.
Yeah, full slate of NBA. Pacers play their first game this evening. I'll be checking a little bit of that out. I'll be flipping back and forth between that and baseball. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at Gonzo Sports Room. That's where I post all the information about our shows. Myself and Dustin will be back in the morning at 9 a.m. with another episode of Around the Bases. We appreciate you guys watching. Have a great day and stay safe.
All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.